Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Trust you had a good enough night rest and was able to rest enough to take on the issues for the day. You're welcome to the program.
Yeah,
Am I Makinde? After failing to sit on Saturday, the Lagos State Judicial Panel on restitution for victims of SARS and other related matters commenced its sitting yesterday without two of its members, at least according to the report. Of course, a good number of people are aware that the senior advocate of Nigeria, Bonolu Adeborua, was absent. Of course, he had hinted that he was considering his continued participation at the panel. And that one of the youth representatives, Rino Olaoduola, had also tweeted a decision to stop further participation in the panel. Of course, you remember he was accusing the federal government, or was it the panel, of cover-up. Of course. So, with the absence of the two, 7 other members sat to listen to 10 petitions listed for hearing, and a number of things went on like that. What question a good number of people might be asking now is, does this really assuage fears? Does it answer any questions, really? So the decisions of the panel, it's been seen now that the decisions of the panel can be binding. I mean, with the reaction that it has generated so far. Question a number of people might also be asking is this effort of government, both at the federal and state levels, is it really speaking to the emotions, intents, and the facts and the issues that people are really concerned with? For which reason these panels were set up in the first place? Well, that is for Lagos, and I don't even know what's happening in other climes. So to speak.
I think that's sitting too in some of those other areas. But I mean, you know how controversial this particular Lagos one was about that protest, the planned protest, because everyone had even spoken before that time, urging people to just sheath their swords since the panel is still sitting, give them the benefit of the doubt, that hoping that if they follow through with the laid down processes and procedures as expected, there should be an outcome which they expect people to wait and see. But now, who knows how these things will eventually turn out?
I'm a little concerned, Chamberlain, I have to be honest with you. We have a bulging youth population. And sincerely, these are the same people who have a lot of energy, who have a lot of creative ideas, and who have a position about things. And rather than try to educate them, at least empathize, I still reference Professor Tomori's persuasive communication ideal. We need to employ that.
Well, he's advising the NGF now, so they brought him on board. So hopefully they take his advice.
Because
you should see some of these results.
Honestly, Chamberlain, we'll see. The young people have, as they say in South, them blood they hot. So we need to find a way to channel the energies that these young people have. And look, let's not take for granted that they're just young people. We have, federal might, we have government power and all of that. Let us appeal to them. Let us speak to them. Because at the end of the day, these are the people that you will eventually have to hand the nation over to govern. So if you do not bring them in now, what manner of country are we going to leave for generations yet unborn? And how will history tell our story? We need to find a way to get them on board.
Yeah, so hopefully, as they say, that word for the wise communities, and then taking lessons and hoping that we consistently focus on trying to do what we need to do to move the country forward. But let's then flip on to the dailies and just bring to you what and how some of them are going about their reportage this morning. Take Nigerian Tribune, for instance. Look at the way they are coming out today. Herders, farmers, conflict, that's their theme. It is time for pastoralism commission, AGF suggests. Okay, you know that this will always be a huge talking point, to say the least. And right off the cuff, because, governors have said, quite a number of them still think that it's a private business. So if you're going to go about this way, okay, Let me read the riders. Maybe that will shed some light, as expected or hopeful. Kano, Zamfara, Kebbi, Niger, Ondo governors in Ogun insists on ban on open grazing. Say Shasha mayhem, not tribal conflict. Perpetrators of Ibadan violence must be fished out, reps tell IGP. Recent ethnic attacks, unfortunate, adding to existing problems, Abdul Salami. So you see, it's something that needs to be addressed. It's right there, and now it just tells you perhaps they're picking a thing or two from those, leaders or politicians who usually take advantage of these fault lines. And now you've seen how this runs deep.
See, there's something building up there. This farmer-herder clash thing is not new to us. We all know this. What are we going to do to ensure that it doesn't happen again? Look, just as you said, and I think that's the part that we're not giving attention to. It's private business. Last word, business. It is something that needs to be nurtured. It's a 30 trillion naira economy, according to the federal government of Nigeria, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. So, and if we are looking for money to fund our budget, to deal with issues, rather than go borrow, why not invest in this structure, in this business very, very well, right? So we don't have to go borrowing. For God's sake, it'll create employment. It'll even give us a national focus, so to speak. So why we're not doing it is something that beats me. You remember, history will tell us that as far back as 1964, 65, we have about 417 ranches, grazing reserves in the north alone. We had in the south as well. One of the most prominent in the south was the Fashola, grazing reserve, somewhere in Oyo State. What has happened to it? What are we doing to bring all these things back? And there were various kinds of cattle. Some from the north, some from outside Nigeria, doing variously. The same way you have different varieties of chicken. That's the way you have different varieties of cattle. So this is a business. It shouldn't be rocket science, should it?
Well, part of what this story suggests, maybe when you go read it, you'll see a lot more, because it's always important to read the context, with which they're making some of these suggestions, because he's saying that, pastoralism commission regulated by law. And
exactly.
Of course, there'll be questions about some states have their laws already. So if this is going to be regulated by law, what, federal law? Will it then supersede state law? How? Because land is involved here. Land Use Act.
Absolutely.
Equally there.
See, Chamberlain, why did the northern governors come all the way from the north to come, felicitate with us, so to speak, here in the south? There is something that is going on. It's an effort to rebuild trust. Let's not miss that fact.
Well,
that trust
I guess we'll not get ahead of ourselves.
So let's bring it back. The Vanguard newspaper is next, and speaking in the same vein, so to speak, prove you don't support criminality. Southwest governors tell FG. Say Sunday Igboho is a child of circumstance. It's a bold statement, Afenifere says. Investigate Shasha violence, reps tell IGP. Makinde gives conditions to reopen market as sports minister calls for peaceful coexistence. That story you'll find on page 10 this morning. Right under the picture there of Makinde and other governors who visited Shasha. Insecurity, Abdusalami warns of Nigeria's imminent disintegration unless. Find out what that is about on page 8. Reference that the vice president has spoken in the same light in time past, saying what you said the other time about fault lines. Yeah, mentioned that one at some point, and so many other stories you want to pick on the front page. You may want to check out the Mr. and Mrs. segment, if you will. AFCON qualifiers. That's on the back page, Vanguard Sports. Eagles prefer Uyo to Lagos, says Raw. Is it cooler there or hotter there?
Well, that's the Eagles. I mean, the story might be there, though. I told you the reasons, hopefully.
All right, that's the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Well, I am going to be looking at Daily Trust for you. Good morning, Nigerians, and welcome to Abuja. You see right on the front page, rising tension. Abdulsalami asks governors to resolve differences. Take responsibility. That's what you find on the front page. Rich, influential people behind current crisis. That's attributed to the president. It's on page 5 of the paper. I'm wondering when he said this. Well, he did say it. That's what Daily Trust is reporting. Page 5 will give you details where, when, and how he said this about rich, influential people behind current crisis. Shasha clashes, not tribal war. That's according to governors. Arms proliferation behind Nigeria's security challenges. That's according to the Senate. Reps to liaise with NGF to address insecurity. That's also on page 5 of the paper. So let's see just what comes out of it, because I've written a number of interventions on this matter. I think it was Ni or Shundari who was saying, you know, shall we tell our future generations that we went to war because a country couldn't manage its cattle? We couldn't manage our cattle? Is that what we went to war over? But he says, much as that, you know, tends to the absurd, you know, wars are usually started by things that are very mundane and sometimes tilt towards the absurd. So hopefully, prayerfully, we will never ever get there, but work must be done, real work, and sincerity must come to the table. Looking just beneath the nameplate, you see a number of other stories there. 2023, PDP leaders meet Jonathan as Benga Daniel Ihejirika join APC. Did I just read right? Well, you might want to flip to page 38 to see that. PDP leaders meet as Benga Daniel Ihejirika join APC. Prices of food highest in 12 years. This is a reality. It's on page 22. And Shasha crisis, Kano gives 18.5 million naira to 185 indigents. That is also there. And if you look at the bottom here, issues as Buhari appoints Bawa EFCC chairman. It's on page 3. So it's confirmed they have a new leader, not yet confirmed by the Senate, but at least appointed at the minimum. We leave it there for Daily Trust.
Okay, take a look at The Guardian, and our business desk must be interested in this one. Crypto restriction opens Nigeria to fresh foreign scramble. You know, they were discussing cryptocurrency. I was just teasing them some time ago. Look at the riders now. More Nigerians sign up on trading platforms. The Guardian, guys. Central banking outliving lifespan, says economist. Unmatched earnings driving popularity of investments. So, fresh insights for them to consider. I'll take a look at all of those platforms that they've got there. So, it is the big one on the front page of The Guardian here today. Without police backing, Bawa becomes EFCC boss. They equally report that. So that's what you see here. That's The Guardian today.
Well, the cryptocurrency issue is...
You want to invest in it?
doesn't look like it's going anywhere.
Talk to the business desk.
Nigerian News Direct is about Shasha crisis. Governors Forum will help rebuild markets. That's according to governors. Ibadan calm, crisis regrettable. That's ascribed to Kebbi governor. Nigeria's unity beyond political party affiliations, says Makinde. He also says government will ensure peace returns to Shasha community in no time. That story you'll find on page 3 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. And of course, you've seen so many other stories this morning. Buhari names 40-year-old Bawa as EFCC chairman, along with a good number of other stories. Omishore APC has caught a big fish. ascribed to Oyetola. That story is on page 3. Okay.
New Telegraph for you, and they have this one. A little more of the president speaking now. Buhari reads Riot Act. I'll deal with troublemakers. That's what's on the front page of New Telegraph. Abubakar warns of Nigeria's imminent disintegration. And this is one more voice we've been listening to, we'll be hearing in the last couple of weeks now. Gunmen kill district head, 9 others. Abduct 24 in Niger. That's also on the front page. Senate to impose penalties on illegal firearms bearers. That's on page 3 of the paper. A number of other stories here just on top of the nameplate. Federal government spends 50 billion naira monthly to subsidize electricity. The question is, whose electricity? Mine doesn't feel subsidized at all. I don't know if yours in Lagos does feel that way. But they say federal government is spending 50 billion naira monthly to subsidize electricity. You might want to read details on page 5. Minister, discos must replace faulty transformers. Others. The question is when, because oftentimes they'll tell you they'll replace it, but the question is how long you'll have to wait. And then when you're driven to frustration, you find yourself contributing to make sure that you raise money to get a new transformer. Well, you also find this one, Ehin Betty, Lagos key to Nigeria's economic fortunes. It's according to the federal government. Okonjo-Iweala, addition of sick infrastructure, youth development. Sanwo-Olu harps on smart city projects, unveils plans. It does look like you Lagosians are in for exciting times. Page 4 might give you details. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
Well, take a look at blueprints next. Nigeria in a state of fear. Abdul Salami, that's a blueprint, the lead one, wants governors to take responsibility, stop blame game. Urges service chiefs to draw coordinated program. NGF, Lords Makinde, pledges support for Shasha victims. People with resources, influence behind violence. Why? Do they have the names? Okay, it might be tricky to come up with the names. But who are those people? Are they after them? Since they know them, will they bring them on board? Should we expect to hear their names? When should we expect to hear their names?
Okay, so many questions. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, people just want answers. And you know what they say, action speaks louder.
So actions will bring the answers?
Well, that's the big one they've got here. But other than that, they have this piece, increase in food, transport prices, stock inflation at 16.47%. So, they've always tried to achieve this single digits inflation rate for a very long time, and we just haven't got it yet. But now you go, 16.47%. Something we need to grapple with.
Absolutely. The Leadership newspaper is still concerned about insecurity. Embers of anarchy, disintegration spreading fast. That's ascribed to Abdul Salami. PMB vows to punish perpetrators of ethnic tension. Will calm frayed nerves, say northern governors. Northerners' interests must be protected. It's according to NEF. Reps warn against inflammatory statements. It's time to create agency for herdsmen. Smalami. Agency for herdsmen. I'm wondering how that plays out. But then, the page 4 of the Leadership newspaper has more of that this morning. Stop disturbing our leaders, Saraki tells APC.
Oh boy.
Has it started?
It started a long time ago.
Oh boy.
They disturb each other, anyway.
Well, the writer says PDP.
If the same disturb is what I mean, because that disturb could mean something else. So my hands are up.
Especially in the political dictionary.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Oh boy.
So you have to be really careful.
All right, stop disturbing our leaders. Saraki tells APC. PDP Reconciliation Committee visits Jonathan. Find that story continue.
Is it the beautiful bride now?
2. Which one? The APC, the PDP, or the former president?
The former president.
Well, he's always been a beautiful bride. Even the president.
Has he?
Oh, he's always been a beautiful bride.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to. Okay, the fact that he's a bride doesn't mean that the
So
marriage
they've been
counts.
lobbying him ever since. They've been visiting him ever since.
Oh well.
Oh, I see. Good. Nice piece of information there.
Yeah. Well, no shortcut to Bauer screening as the EFCC chairman, as according to the Senate. But right under that one, Disco's responsible for power sector failure. It's ascribed to a minister. Which one?
So what next?
These details are on the inside pages. Okay, that's a good question. So what next? What will be done about that?
I thought that's part of the rider. Isn't it coming?
Well, nothing else for now.
My OMG.
Oh, well, this might be cherry news for you and the other interested investors. FG targets $10 million investment in cashew value chain. The inside pages has the story. Markwe?
Look at the Daily Times quickly. Stiffer penalties coming for illegal firearms possession. That's what Daily Times has for you this morning. The Daily Times, I must say, very specifically. Disintegration. Nigeria may disintegrate over ethnic crisis. Abdulsalami warns. You also see there some entertainment stories. Nollywood. Rita Dominic's movie La Femme Angela set to hit cinemas. Others. So would they be speaking a bit of French in it? I don't know. But La Femme Angela simply means the woman Angela, I think. It's on page 14 of the paper because I'm not sure if... I know Angela is supposed to be a name. You also see there inflation. Nigeria faces more hikes in food prices as inflation rises to 16.5%. Would you believe that? 16.5%. You know, they say inflation is that thief of money. Just your money just continues to lose value as inflation carries the value of it away. So I don't know what you're going to do, but that's what is on the front page of the Daily Times. Buhari Okonjo-Iweala additional chart path to development at Lagos Economic Summit. So that also made it to the front pages of the Daily Times this morning. Let's leave it there for the paper.
Well, check out another Daily Independent, and they have something similar to what some of the previous papers have equally highlighted, and they're quoting Abdulsalami Abubakar on this particular one about Nigeria. And the lead story on the front page of Daily Independent reads, Nigeria on the verge of breakup. Abdulsalami Abubakar, people with resources, influence causing uproar. Buhari vows to identify, deal with them in due course. Due course, a pretty word you might want to note. They'll talk about inflation as well. So,
when will it be due then?
Well, I guess you'll get the devil in the detail here, you know, as they say. Senate seeks stiffer penalty for illegal possession of firearms. Lawan urges lawmakers to work with executive to end insecurity. I guess they have some low-hanging fruit, I reckon, about illegal possession of firearms. The police will have some details as well about this one. But how they approach this remains to be seen, as they say. Well, that is it with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Well, yes, that's the matter that's going to be occupying our minds this morning. The appointment of a new chair for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. They were saying that this time around, the president is not opting to have an acting, anyone in acting capacity. He's going straight he sent the name to the Senate, and anytime soon they should be conducting a confirmation hearing as to whether or not he'll eventually assume the position as substantive chair. The question is, what are the issues, what are the matters that will be before him, even as this administration continues to maintain that one of its thrusts is fighting corruption. We have with us this morning Mr. Yvier Richards, who is the Executive Director of Corruption Observatory. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you, Mark. Well, it's good to be here.
And it's good to see you in our studios in Abuja.
My first time. This place is beautiful, you know. Beautiful.
Well, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
You have seen and you've heard, you're right in the city where the appointment took place, this new chair for the EFCC. How are you welcoming this news?
Well, the first thing I did was to look at the profile of Mr. Bauer, very impressive profile. Been with the EFCC for about 17 years, was among the first cadet officers, highly literate, first degree in economics, second degree in international relations and diplomacy. Did a lot of cases for the EFCC, served around the country, had a zonal office that oversees the South states, those of the Southwest states, and the big fish, Lagos State itself, where he's currently serving. And also did the investigation for Desiani, you know, that big investigation. So profile is very impressive. One is tempted to be very hopeful that things will take a new turn. But my challenge all this while has been that it's not just about the people alone. You know, I take a look at Ribadu. Ribadu's case was a bit honorable because he was shown the way out through the back door, promoted and sent on course and all of that. Then came, what's her name now? Beginning to forget the name now.
Oh dear. So,
the lady that came,
yes,
you know?
Waziri, I think.
Waziri.
Yes.
Waziri's case, I remember clearly when the then President Jonathan, after Waziri released her book, said that her case was a national embarrassment and was prepared to leave it as state secret. After that, Lamode came. Lamode was investigated for about 1.3 trillion. And then Magu came. You and I know exactly what has just transpired. That tells me straight ahead that there's a governance problem within the commission itself. And until those problems are properly sorted out, it's not just going to be about the people, the persons alone, but about the institution.
No, it is impressive that even though he's just 40, that immediately stood out. And you can see his young face being plastered all over the papers. Yeah. And some people will say that at least we're seeing some zest and vigor going to be brought into the EFCC. Yeah. And to think that he's been there for at least 17 years, it means it started out pretty early. And as one might expect for those, if you start out pretty early in an agency supposed to fight corruption, there is no way that one or two issues might not have cropped up in the manner in which you have fought corruption, so to speak. Yeah. And it would seem that that has already spawned some controversy, which they're asking the senators to address, and which they think could also affect his chances. But I don't know if you've come across any of those stories. Yeah,
on my way to this place this morning, I saw some of the headlines talking about issues. I've not seen the details. Yes. But essentially, that's why the Senate is in place, and that's the work that the Senate has to do. Mm-hmm. Look at the details, look at the merits about the accusations and all of that. Eventually confirm or refuse to confirm. So the screening is instructive, and it should just come to play.
Indeed, we'll be looking forward to that. We also have with us this morning, joining us, our second guest, Mr. Daniel Bwala, who is special, well, it just says SA here. SA could be special advisor, I want to think that's what it is, to the Deputy President of the Senate on Legal and Constitution Matters. And he is on Zoom. Mr. Bwala, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you have seen and you've heard the appointment of Mr. Abdurrashid Bauer as the new chairman of the EFCC. He's not been confirmed yet, but what did you make of the appointment?
Well, thank you for having me. I think when EFCC was established, the idea from the beginning, the conception was to model the commission after institutions abroad like the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, where you are going to be having private-driven investigative detectives. But because at the time it was at this infancy stage, the police had to man it. And ever since convention continued to remain the same, police remain as the head of EFCC until this very moment. So his appointment now presents a paradigm shift for the reasons that I will state to you. You see, for the years that police officers were heading the EFCC oftentimes was criticized as a mere police outpost because of the administrative structure and then the character of the police brought into the EFCC. And that affected, for example, even in investigation, it affected administration, and sometimes even in operation, and which is where you find people oftentimes criticizing the commission as not obeying the rule of law in investigation, and even in adhering to the provisions of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. For example, when you take a suspect to custody, the law is clear. You get detention order to keep him for 7 days. You renew it for another 7 days. And within this period, you have to make up your mind either to charge him. But in the past, you find that somebody will stay in the EFCC for more than 1 or 2 months, and which is the characteristic in actual sense of the police when you go to police station and all that. But these guys, the recently nominated person, Bauer belongs to a class called COS 1 in EFCC, the founding private detectives. And there was a lot of investment done by the government on these COS 1 people around the world to train them with National Crimes Commission, with FBI. So this is what I think is the paradigm shift. You are going to find in the coming days the EFCC moving to a direction where there will be strict compliance with the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. And in all of their operations and modus operandi, it must be consistent with the provisions of Administration of Criminal Justice Act and other extant laws. And I have a couple of advice for the new boss, because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. For him to be able to succeed, there are a couple of things he will have to look into. For example, in administration, over the years, EFCC has been operating without staff regulation signed. This staff regulation where you discipline staff has not been signed. And in the past, when staff are dismissed for whatever reason, they go to court. The court has oftentimes struck out these staff regulation at the EFCC. So that portends a problem of structure. If you come to the issue of promotion, for example, you might be promoted 3 times in EFCC, but you remain on the same desk. So sometimes it presents this problem of whether or not you are progressive or progressing in the work that you're doing. Needless to also talk about issue that relates to probably transfer and all of that. But that's administration. In terms of oppression, which is very fundamental to the Nigerian people, because that is what will reflect whether the fight is consistent with laws. This is where I believe that he will need to look at the legal department in EFCC. There is need for a reform of the legal department. They must be debriefed and then briefed into understanding that EFCC is to be modeled. Now, all of the training they got with FBI, with National Crimes Commission, must be put into play. And being that this is the first time that we're trying somebody that is not from the police background, it is incumbent of the man to ensure that all of the ideals are suggested, emphasized, and reinforced by our foreign partners are better applied in the EFCC going forward.
So you see a different, you see the EFCC going in a different direction as a result of the fact that there's been there seems to be a clear break from the police now being at the helm of affairs at the EFCC. That's what you're saying?
Take for example, in the area of investigation. I see that with this new leadership, if he must actualize, if he must practicalize, if he must bring to bear the training he received around the world, then investigation must first be thorough. You must not concede to the impulse of politicians or political office holders to run into politically motivated investigation, where, for example, circumstances that brought you to power, you want to please the circumstances that brought you to power, and therefore their whims and caprices is what you're looking at. You want to look at the interrelationship between the EFCC and other agencies of the government, and you want to factor, because in the case of the police, from 2003 or so, when EFCC was established till date, there has never been the prosecution or investigation that leads to a prosecution of a police boss throughout this period, because the EFCC chairman is about the rank of either assistant or commissioner of police. But in the police hierarchy, you have people above him. And that has created a very big problem for EFCC to be able to drive the process forward. But now, this is not a police person. This is a private detective trained and even armed. And then you have a couple of them in the EFCC. So now there is a release from the shackles of interdependency. So I see that he will have to look into it.
But Mr. Bola,
he must...
Just pardon me, let me just chip this in before you go on. I mean, does he fulfill, because we see comments as to requirements of the appointment of the EFCC chairman. So from the point of law, does he fulfill that section 2, sub A, paragraph 1?
Yes, it does. You see, the confusion people often have is that they interpret that word, that the chairman must be about the rank, not below the rank of assistant commissioner of police or any of its agencies of the law enforcement. But what you don't know is that the cadet officers, which he belongs to that category, ever since they came in, they were trained by, in some cases with the DSS and some cases the army. And lately, they are armed. And don't forget that EFCC as a commission and people who operate in EFCC as operatives are performing the duties and functions of law enforcement. And therefore, EFCC qualifies as a law enforcement institution because they are enforcing anti-crime laws. But there are two prongs to the requirement. One, he must have cognate experience of 15 years or more. And that he has. I think he's about 17 years in that service, being that they were foundational detective members. And then the B part must not be below the rank of Assistant Commissioner of Police. His present rank as constituted is about that, or even a step higher than that. And then the third part, which is that he comes from a law enforcement agency of the government, and EFCC qualifies as that. So, for example, anybody who raises argument, it is debatable, arguable, but you can conveniently take that to the bank that people who come in as private detectives trained, if they fulfill the mandatory requirement of the number of years in the EFCC, they would have met the requirement of the other limb, which is that they belong to a law enforcement institution of the government. So it is proper, it is in order. But I will then add, for the avoidance of doubt, there is no problem about EFCC bringing a bill to the National Assembly for amendment that will then put it in a clear-cut manner so that there will be no need for ambiguity or that will give somebody a ground to go to court to challenge that. But in a nutshell, he met the requirement in Section 2 of the EFCC Act to be appointed as chairman of EFCC.
Perhaps what the law is referencing there is the fact that the job of investigation actually is supposed to be that of the police and not essentially about any other investigative agency. But let me take this to Mr. Xavier Richards. A number of things stick out to me, but let me begin from this one. And this is something, Mr. Xavier Richards, that you have also referenced earlier, and that's when you mentioned previous chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. We saw the pattern in which some of them, as you said, one of them was showed out through the back door, using your words now, and a number of others like that. They went out in what everybody believes to be controversial circumstances. Now, nothing really has been done to review the system within which each of these EFCC chairmen have operated over time, both in acting capacity and in substantive capacity. Now, this new EFCC chairman is going into the same system, same way, and he's going to operate as well. Are you confident that it's not going to happen, it's not the same thing that is going to happen to him as the case of the previous chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission? Because as some say, and you've also said it as well, corruption always fights back.
Well, truthfully, I don't think I would say I'm confident. I listened very carefully to Daniel, the other guest, and he raised a number of governance issues currently facing the Commission. I think the key word there is corruption risk assessment. Corruption risk assessment should be done on the Commission itself. If you watch closely, you will see that the issue of the management of the proceeds of crime came to the fore, and I think that was where both Magu and what's his name now, Lamode, became complicit. So that was one very, very, big risk in the Commission, the system itself that has just been looked at. And thank God, an interministerial committee has been put in place to handle the management of the proceeds of crime. But that is just one. And there are several of them. For instance, if you look at how lawyers are selected, SANs are selected, the fees that is being paid, how investigations are done, at what point in the life of an investigation should the matter be taken to court, the list is endless. So there are several governance issues that should be properly reviewed within the Commission so that it becomes easy for any head of the Commission to have a smooth sail while in office. So I wouldn't say I'm very confident that Bauer's tenure will come and go and it will be hooray, hooray, hooray all through.
Let me quickly take you up on some of the issues. You have raised, some issues, internal issues confronting the EFCC in-house that would either make or mar the success of, Mr. Bauer as EFCC chair. However, there are also external issues in terms of how Nigerians currently view the fight against corruption. First and foremost, do you get the feeling at all that there is any fight going on against corruption?
Well, let me first speak to how Nigerians view the fight against corruption. They think it is dead. They think it's highly politicized. And they just think there's nothing real that is going on. And which is why some of us now are beginning to be elated by the appointment of Bauer not being a regular police person, a highly trained investigator and all of that. But the issue there is that the system is going into how strong is that institution. Look at the fact that see what happened to Ribadu. Can this institution be, separated from political interference?
That's a big question, because right now, I'm not going to remove that. I don't want to preempt what it is that people are going to read in the papers. There's already word out there. There was always a big controversy between the office of the EFCC chair and also the office of the AGF. Now, we understand that the AGF, that's the Attorney General of the Federation, has supervisory powers over the office of the EFCC. However, there's always been that you have supervisory powers, but you cannot interfere in the matters of the EFCC. The question is, there's been word out there now, how true that is, we do not know, that this is actually a nominee of the Attorney General of the Federation. And perhaps this could either help with smooth investigations and smooth running of the EFCC, or could cause a blockade or, a stoppage of certain things within the EFCC. Nonetheless, he has his work cut out for him. Nigerians will have certain expectations of him. How can he, as EFCC chair, begin to deliver on some of the expectations that Nigerians have of him, especially in the light of the fact that you just said that people think that the fight against corruption is dead?
It all has to do with strengthening that institution, strengthening the commission. And I repeat again and again, we have to conduct corruption risk on the commission itself. What are every agency that is out there in the private sector, you have managers for risk, all right? You have managers for compliance and all of that. So why don't we do the same thing in public sector agencies? It's not just the EFCC. There are several other agencies that have the same problem I'm speaking about. So that problem is rife. And is glaring us, is glaring, is staring us at the face. That is the start point. That's where we should first visit. How strong is the EFCC itself?
How do they show their strength? How are they going to show their strength to say, we are a strong agency, we have capacity?
By putting systems in place, for instance, to deter political interference, to see that the issue of conflict of interest does not come to play and to destroy the mandate of the commission. Because how sure are you that a highly placed person within the commission could be nominating a lawyer that has that has affiliation to a particular criminal individual or something that is under investigation? How are lawyers selected? So the issue is endless, but there are some key ones that can be brought and be properly scrutinized to ensure that the commission, the institution becomes strong. I don't want to go into, look at what Trump was trying to do to, what do you call it now? The judiciary in the U.S. Much as he tried, that institution stood strong, and it didn't succeed. It's the same kind of thing we're looking at here. So the executive may want to play down hard on the EFCC, and even the leadership of the EFCC will be deterred by the strength of the institution itself, from making itself available to be used as just a tool in the hand of either the legislature or the judicial or the executive.
I'm going to pose the same question to Mr. Bwala. Mr. Ivie Richards just said here that Nigerians think that the fight against corruption is dead. And that not much is going on in that regard. What do you think that the new EFCC chair must do to breathe life back into this fight against corruption?
Well, Nigerians must hear, and in my view, by the time Nigerian story ends in time infinito, there will be a storybook about the success of Ibrahim Magu in anti-corruption fight. You can never take that. And you can see what he has achieved within the period. The new boss. So my belief fundamentally is that EFCC as an institution is strong. I will give you an example. When President Goodluck Jonathan was president, there was political influence on EFCC to investigate and prosecute people. They will do that because you are political office holders. The same in America. FBI, you can influence them at the beginning. When you leave power and another person comes to power, all of your dossier, they have it. That person can even use it against you. So the fact that when Jonathan was in power and Desani could control EFCC did not stop EFCC from investigating and prosecuting her. That is what is called institutional strengthening. The problem, however, has to do with the headship. And the greatest temptation that Bawa is going to face throughout his term is not the police. He has extricated himself from them by virtue of this paradigm shift. His greatest temptation, and that would come down to the question of Maokwe about the perception of Nigeria. I think that Nigerians will look at how Bawa and the institution of EFCC manage and interrelate with the Attorney General. Because one fact you can never take away is that the Attorney General recommended him. The president, I can tell you that, even though I can't say definitively, probably may not have known him from Adam. Attorney General recommended him. He's from Attorney General state. They have a history. They know each other. So there's no two ways about that. But the system is never built from the beginning to have FBI and Justice Department to have so much of friendship because it will interfere with the smooth working. It is meant to be a check and balance to each other. Even the office of the Attorney General has
sorry
supervisory...
to interrupt you. We have to take a break now. I'll let you finish your thoughts and your expectations and how he should navigate that when we come back from this break. Please stay with us.
This is Channels Television's breaking news.
Well, the news just breaking news indicates that gunmen have attacked Government Science College, Kagara, in Niger State, killing one student and abducting some others. Actually, armed men did attack that school. It's in Kagara in Rafi, local government area of Niger State. At least one student is feared killed and several other students abducted. Some teachers and their family members residing within the college staff quarters were also said to have been abducted by the gunmen. A government source who pleaded anonymity disclosed this to Channels Television via telephone conversation in the early hours of Wednesday. Now, according to the source, the attackers were said to have stormed Government Science College, Kagara, at about 2 a.m. on Wednesday and started shooting sporadically. In the process, a student was killed while some others sustained gunshots. Some staff of the college and their families were also abducted from their homes during the attack. The source could not, however, give the number of persons abducted and those injured as at the time this report was filed and sent in to us. The source further said that gunmen were dressed in the same school uniform by the students, disguising to be members of the school. The latest attack comes barely 3 days after gunmen attacked a bus belonging to Niger State Transport Authority, that's NSTA, along Mina Zungeru Road and abducted at least 21 passengers. So that is the breaking news we've got for you right now. And as the events continue to unfold and as we get more details, we will bring them to you.
Well, in the meantime, of course, more confirmations definitely will come from that. But let me take this back, our conversation on anti-corruption back to you, Mr. Bwala. 4 institutions or 4 stalks come to my mind in this entire fight against corruption that we have been talking about over the years. One is the institution. Secondly, are the people who head the institution, the EFCC in particular, the people who head, that's the chairman. Third, are the legal frameworks and the legal institutions involved. And the fourth is the people. And I'm talking about Nigerians, regular or high-profile Nigerians and all of that. So in all of these, it would seem like many of these institutions, well, these 4 stalks seem to be working more at variance as opposed to working together. Sometimes even the institution and the individuals heading the institution, they don't particularly work together. That is why you would find certain powerful individuals being able to capitulate the persons who are heading this institution while the institution itself remains. And then the legal frameworks are not able to protect the head of the EFCC and the people that are seemingly just there. Do you see this as a challenge of merging, fortifying the vision of fighting corruption with these 4 stalks, or you think we should just go on the way we're going?
No. I do not think the conclusions you made, I do not think that is accurate. Now, first of all, earlier on you talked about investigation. You say it's only the police has powers. No, everybody has power. Even you have power to investigate, and all law enforcement agencies.
What I said earlier about that, Mr. Bwala, is that the law assumed that only the EFCC will always be headed by a policeman because that's one of the primary responsibilities of the police.
So I'm saying to you that the law does not assume. Law makes provision. Assumption is where the law is not clear. But let me push it further to the point you have said. You see, the institution of EFCC and so many other institutions of government are strong. That is why, even if you influence them, when you are not in power, you will discover that you are unable to destroy the evidence that will also nail you. It is the strengthening of the institutions. And EFCC as a body is partnering with a lot of international foreign partners. And these foreign partners also serve as checkmate. For example, there is the FBI dimension, there is the NCA, and you have other counterparts. If EFCC begins to compromise financial intelligence, if EFCC begins to compromise assets and investigation, they are going to be checked by these agencies. And this is how the anti-corruption thing works. There is a global anti-corruption forum as well. When you bring it down to Nigeria, the temptation really has not been with the institute, because staff of EF, there are guys, I can be honest to tell you, that have staked their lives all these years for this work. They go to work early and they don't leave till midnight. Some on investigation, they risk their lives. And like these private detectives now, if you look at when we talked about this regulatory framework, if you turn the back of their warrant card, that is the identification, the detectives only, not admin staff, you will see that it is stated there, they have all the powers of a superior police officer. They can bear arms. So maybe the president will need to also look into that to arm EFCC with specialized ammunition for the purposes of operations. But the greatest temptation has been, my brother, the leadership and his management of the agency against political office holders. Even in America, political office holders like president or anybody will always try to influence. It is how you resist it. Now, why that of Bauer is peculiar is because Bauer now comes from KB, where Attorney General comes from. Bauer was
Mr. Boala, just a moment. Just a moment, Mr. Boala. Should that be an issue? I'm trying to situate this with the strength of the institution that you talk about and the process that should throw up leadership naturally as opposed to depending on political stocks. Because there is no doubt from what you have also said, the political influence is has always played a role with previous economic and financial crimes chairmen. And that is how come it seemed that things went the way they always went with each one of them. So if an EFCC chairman is thrown up by a political influence, don't you see that same EFCC chairman falling by the same way?
Well, from the security strategic point of view, and I can tell you that because I consult for security agencies, is that if as the chairman, from the first time attempt is made to influence you, you outrightly reject, what happened to James Comey by Donald Trump will happen to you. He will fire you. And he brings another person, he fires him. He brings another person, he fires him. And if that person is subject of investigation, or that you need to work to also investigate him and his cronies, by the time you begin to post resistance at the first instance, we may end up not having people that will stand and build that institution. So we are saying minimize the risk. You can never eliminate the risk totally. Then secondly, you make mention of issue. You say should not be the point when I was talking about his relationship with the Attorney General. In an ideal situation, it ought not to be. And I do not think, and I do not hope that he will allow it to be. Now, his greatest temptation is that Attorney General that recommended him is also the supervisory body of EFCC, just like the Justice Ministry over the Justice Department over FBI. Now, how does he manage? And I will tell you the point of temptation. Attorney General is Attorney General, but he's also a politician. And as politician, any politician has the right to mix with other politicians. Most of the politicians in Nigeria are subject of investigation, or they pose the risk of being investigated in the future. So you are going to find a situation where somebody who knows Attorney General and who is being investigated by EFCC will want to get the influence of Attorney General to whittle down investigation on himself and many other issues. Now, if Attorney General is not a politician but a strict practitioner, then we don't even need to talk about it. But because he's a politician, you can't stop him from meeting with politicians. How will this chair manage this kind of situation? Because 80% of politicians and public office holders that are subject of investigation in Nigeria have the pedigree, the financial wherewithal to relate in the capacity of the Attorney General. So how does he manage? Now, he can strengthen himself by emphasizing over and over again that the supervisory powers of the Attorney General over him is in Section 174 without more, which is that you can institute, you can take over, and you can discontinue a case that is started by EFCC. But you can never affect their administration. You should never affect their investigation. You should never affect their operations. And you should never demand that intelligence leading to investigation, intelligence leading to operation, or even prosecution should be supplied to you. Because there is no way Justice Department will demand that from FBI. Justice Department only comes into play where FBI operation is running inconsistent with the provisions of their laws, and especially in the application of FISA. Now, FISA court, like where you go to FISA court and get order to then begin to place surveillance on private citizens. So Justice Department wants to be sure you're consistent with the law, because all of the applications oftentimes are done by ex parte. The other party is not there to defend.
But Mr. Bola, in this case, pardon me, in this case, should there be any need for us to worry, whether he's a politician or he's a lawyer, because the laws guiding operations and all of these things are clearly spelled out?
Right. We don't need to worry, but in Nigeria, we have to worry. The same thing as I'm speaking to you now, if I go into politics, I beg that the media should worry and begin to say, we need to checkmate. The idea behind the media being the fourth essence of the realm is to ensure that without prejudice to being a politician, you do not use political. I'll give you a good instance. Recently, you remember when the National Assembly invited the president. Wrongly, they said, instead of inviting, they said they ordered and summoned the president. That Attorney General was said to have jumped into this stage and begin to declare that they do not have the power. Constitutionally and under a normal legal framework, it is not the duty of Attorney General. It is the legal officer or legal advisor of the president, because the invitation is extended to president in his capacity as a person and as a president. Where Attorney General would have come in is where this thing has created a dispute, where National Assembly is going to court. Usually it is the National Assembly versus the Attorney General of the Federation.
Okay.
So that thin line of understanding limits is what we are going to be looking at and checking.
All right, we'll come to Mr. Evie soon, but Mr. Bola, the response you gave about the position of the law is equivalent to his appointment, people are still talking about that, but hopefully we'll come back to that if we still have time. But there are still questions about some things that are not so clear to a lot of people. They ask, for instance, you remember that the former chairman, Magu, was not confirmed all the times that was tried. And now that the presidency is seeking this confirmation, does it make rubbish the previous stance on all of those points of law that they had raised as to why they didn't need to confirm the acting EFCC chairman?
At the time, all of this legal opinion about the National Assembly didn't need to confirm was superfluous. And I think it was prepared and supplied to the vice president at the time, given the exigency of the event. But the Constitution is clear about the requirement for the confirmation. It's under the doctrine of separation of power. Anybody that will act in a capacity of the executive at a certain level that will affect national security will require congressional confirmation. Because the idea is that if he does not have, that means foreign agents can influence the executive branch of government and bring threats to the national security of the country. So it is a fundamental requirement by the Constitution that the president will nominate, and it is subject to the confirmation by the National Assembly. It means if National Assembly rejects that nomination, the president will drop the person and bring another person, but cannot impose. However, their rejection of a candidate must be cogent and compelling. It cannot be guided by political feeling. And at the time, Magu was refused because of so many things. Some of the problems were created by the National Assembly being angry with him, and some were created by his own way of interrelationship with people. So, but this one, his name was sent straight up to be confirmed as a substantive chair. And we have a National Assembly that if the president say, hello, they will say hi immediately, no objection. So you are not going to find a problem in the confirmation of this of Bauer. And Bauer, let me be honest with you, is a very experienced and highly disciplined and trained person. I have absolute confidence that Bauer will do a good job. I am only saying Bauer needs to check these things because this will define his administration. whether or not he manages his work in its interrelationship with the Office of the Attorney General.
On the lighter note, Mr. Bola, I wonder what your principal, the DSP, will think about that point. You say when they say hello, they will say hi. But let me get Mr. Ify on this one. Well, as someone just listening and watching, and of course concerned about how we approach our fight against corruption, looking at the appointment questions concerning some of those allegations making the rounds, whether they're true or not, and what they expect of the National Assembly or Senate with respect to clearing him on this one. Do you then think that, look, whatever is being said out there, you still think that at the end of the day, it's about what he brings to the table, or what is your impression about how all of this will affect our quest to ensure we keep track on fighting corruption?
Well, I'll go back again to the issues that I raised concerning a strengthening of the commission itself. Mr. Bola, I remember some time ago, a notable Nigerian said that if you put an angel in charge of the NNPC, the angel will be corrupt. You know? And straight ahead, that person was talking about how strong the systems within the NNPC is. There is this thing we call the social and economic impact indicator of organizations. That's how Nigerians perceive the success or failure of an organization. The values that the EFCC bring are the rule of law, economic development, good quality of life, brought to bear through reduction in internet fraud, reduction in terrorism financing, reduction in abuse of power, and all of that. So if the system is not strong enough, Nigerians don't want to know whether the person in power is Bawa or is Magu, or they just want to see that the internet fraud is not as high as it used to be. Abuse of power is low. Terrorism financing is low. EFCC will now be scored high. The moment those things are still glaring and all over the place within the outer society, Nigerians will score the commission low. And this is the point I'm making.
Yeah,
now,
but
for you
Mr.
to
Ify,
be able to achieve a reduction in internet fraud,
you know, Mr. Ify, if I could just bring this in before you proceed, pardon me. You know, when you say that is what Nigerians want to see, but if I could borrow a leaf, or perhaps from what Mr. Bola had said about politicians being in certain offices, he even said if he's there, then they may need to worry. If politicians have a thing or two on whoever is in that kind of position, should we then expect that it will be, I mean, everything will go on well? Or because there are those who will think, look, he'll be beholden to certain people. Shouldn't that be a source of concern?
You know, I'm not sure if there is a particular panel that should be nominating the chairman or the chairperson of the EFCC prior to the nomination by the president to the legislature. But one thing I want to react to, if that kind of panel exists and the Attorney General is part of that panel, it is straight ahead a matter of question of the conflict of interest for him to have had any kind of input at all toward the nomination of Bawa. Why do I say this? First and foremost, they are from the same state. Second, he is the supervisory officer to that commission. Third, they may have had some kind of personal relationship now or in the past. So it's a question of conflict of interest if he has any hand in the nomination. Now, the question you are asking is, if I speak to that, there is no gift that is free. You know, no matter how you want to argue it, every gift has an expectation, a return. And no matter how strong the person of Bawa might be, and given the fact that the commission is not that strong, I do not see the possibility at all times that Bawa will be able to resist completely the interference and the influence that the AG and his lieutenants and friends and politicians might bring to bear on the commission. That's the way it is in anti-corruption, and that's the way the law is. So all issues concerning conflict of interest must be properly identified and managed so that it does not begin to negate the mandate of the commission
could you,
in the future.
It's a little confusing.
What's the conflict of interest here in the...
Sorry, I just wanted to just quickly...
I just wanted a bit of expatiation on this conflict of interest. The interest of the Attorney General, as far as Nigerians are concerned, should be to uphold the rule of law. The interest of the EFCC chairman is to fight corruption, which also, and according to the law as well, which is also upholding the rule of law. Where is the conflict coming from?
If we look at antecedents, if we look at the issue that cropped up between Magu and the AGF,
indeed,
not the past AGF, the current AGF, then we now look at the fact that the current appointee is a nominee of this AGF. Not just being a nominee, they come from the same state.
The point I'm trying to make, I'm sorry to interrupt you, we've seen this conflict. I'm not naive to the fact that, we've seen this kind of conflict crop up before, even before allegedly Mago and this current AGF. We saw it with Ribado and then Attorney General Michael Ondaka. And we saw how that eventually played out. And nonetheless, that was because there was conflict of interest in terms of who should be prosecuted and whether or not they should even be prosecuted at all. Ideally, if the Attorney General's office is to, push the interest of the law in stricter sense, so talking about, the country, with the country at heart. And also the chairman of the EFCC is doing that. Should any conflict arise in the first place? That's the question I'm asking.
The key word you use there is ideally. Ideally. In the free world where things work, where institutions are strong, no one will raise these concerns. But in our own climb, it's not as free as we want it to be. A lot of things are subjective. People have personal interests, and they could go a long way to fulfilling those personal interests. That's why our own anti-corruption tools must also take into cognizance our immediate culture, our immediate perception, and all of these must be brought to bear as to who is heading the EFCC. If the AGF is the supervisory officer, the AGF should not be part and parcel of the panel nominating an officer to head the EFCC. Don't forget that the EFCC can investigate the AGF and convict the AGF. But that on the one side. On the other side, these two persons now come they come from the same state. They've been together for quite a while. Who has the DSS investigated the relationship between Bauer and the AGF in time past? You see, and that brings me to the real problem that Nigerians have. The system of Nigeria is such that agencies operate in silos.
That's going to be another issue, because we see how very guarded. There was some conflicts at some point between the office of the DSS and that of the EFCC. I think there was a time that they were investigating a former DG of the DSS, and we're going for his arrest under Mago. And you could see just how very strongly the DSS resisted that. And we also saw how it was the DSS report that seemed to have done Mago in with the 8th Senate. So it would seem that not all is very clear in terms of who should do what and whose responsibility is what. However, when we talk about the office of the EFCC chairman, some people also believe that he needs to be checkmated. Otherwise, he could become, as somebody already pointed out, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Don't we stand a risk with that?
A lot of risk. That's exactly what I'm saying. If we were to be running an ideal system, by now a file would be before the appropriate committee in the Senate, or at least before the Senate chairman, a dossier about the life of Bawa, the 17 years he has been with the EFCC. Is that one existing? I don't know. If it has to exist, it has to come from the DSS. So there has to be an interagency collaboration to have a seamless, flow of these activities. Now, the fact that Magu was not confirmed was more or less because of the information that the DSS put forth. So you see, Magu was not confirmed by the then Senate. This present Senate that has confirmed a lot of people didn't also confirm Magu. Me and you were not privy to those issues that were raised, but there must have been issues that, are very, very key to national embarrassment and national development.
But I take it that you're very hopeful about the appointment of this new chair, are you?
Yeah, given the profile that I've seen thus far, I'm just hoping that when it starts, it should be able to rejig the system.
It's a fine place to leave it. We have to thank you so much for coming on the program. Mr. Evie Richards is the Executive Director of Corruption Observatories and speaking with us here in our Abuja studios. We also had with us Mr. Daniel Buala, who is the Special Advisor to the Deputy President of the Senate on Legal and Constitution Matters, joining us via Zoom. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. Well, we take a break now. Just before we do, we remind you of this breaking news that gunmen have attacked a government science secondary school in Kagara in Niger State. They've killed one student, abducted others, including teachers and family members of the teachers who are on the premises. So we will be following that story up for you and bringing you details as the program goes on. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. Well, yes, we did bring you that breaking news about gunmen attacking a school in Kagara, Rafi local government area of Niger State. Well, we do have our correspondent, Emperor Simon, who filed in that report, joining us this morning via phone to give us some more information, whichever one he's got. Good morning, Emperor. Thank you for joining us today. So, yes, you did file the report.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
All right. What else can you tell us about what's going on?
Well, at the moment, we're still gathering more information on the attack. But for now, what we know is that the attackers stormed the school, that's Government Science College, Kagara, at about 2 a.m. And they started from the staff college, the staff quarters, which is located within the school. And information we gathered said that when they attacked the staff quarters, they abducted some teachers and then their families. From there, they moved to the students' hostel. Now, one thing is that we were told that the attackers were dressed in the school uniform, which of course is a premeditated kind of attack, and they made their way to the hostel where they started shooting sporadically, of course, to scare the students, and they were able to abduct some number of students, which were yet to confirm. And then one student was said to have been killed, and I was given the name Benjamin Doma. That's the student that was killed. And at the moment, what we again have gathered is the fact that a staff has escaped from the hands of the gunmen, but there are still quite a lot, a reasonable number of staff and students that are still in captivity.
Wow. But were any word from government authorities? We understand they did tell you they didn't want to be named at the moment.
Yes, well, it's a common phenomenon in Niger State where when incidents like this happen, you don't get information on time, you don't get information from government officials, you don't get information from security agencies who, of course, are supposed to be furnishing journalists with such information. So at the moment, nobody is willing to speak. Those who even, whom I contacted, pleaded not to be mentioned as the source of the information I got earlier on. So nothing from the government yet, no release, no any kind of information. But again, Chamberlain, what is worrisome about this attack is that it is coming barely 3 days after the attack on the government vehicle that was conveying some passengers along Minazundiri Road. As we know at the moment, at least there are close to 20 of those passengers who are still in the camp of the bandits. So it's a worrisome situation for Niger State. Looking at the spate of attacks recently, we know that from 2020 January to date, at least 50 persons have been killed, and the number keeps rising by the day. So it's really a pathetic one, and we know that the state government is not resting on its oars, even though not much progress has been made so far.
Well, isn't it interesting, Emperor, when you said on one hand that officers of you say on the one hand that the attack is premeditated. I mean, from what you have said, clearly it was something that was deliberate, was planned, it was premeditated. But on the other hand, we didn't seem to have any information, any intelligence information to say that this is going to happen, and consequently we should find a way to nip it in the bud.
Now, you see, I was actually going through somebody's tweet. A traditional title holder in Kagara actually tweeted at about 12:45 a.m. And he's the Walin Kagara. And in his tweet, he actually tagged it an open letter to the governor, and he copied, he tagged the Niger State Police Command and some other influential persons, including the president's Twitter handle, where he was saying that some areas within Rafi local government area are currently being threatened. And in that letter, he was suggesting that schools should be closed down. And that came before the attack, So it's really dicey, the situation at the moment. But again, like I said, for the bandits to have dressed in school uniform to disguise themselves as students of that college, it actually shows that there was actually a premeditated, the attack is actually a premeditated one.
And many the questions, natural questions will then be, if it's an open letter, how come that security agencies didn't pick any of this? Have you gotten any communication either from the state's DSS, the police in the state, any communication from any outfit concerning what could have happened or what they're doing at the moment?
Well, Chamberlain, like I did say earlier on, there has not been any information, any statement as to these attacks before the attack or even after the attack. We would have expected that with the information out there, just as the traditional title holder I mentioned, put in the public space, there should have been some kind of warning coming from the security agencies within the state. But that's actually not what happened. So it was like the residents of these affected communities, and you know that not only Kagara, we've received information of attacks from various communities. So only the residents seem to be more concerned about the kind of information they are receiving. The warning that should have come from the agencies is not forthcoming.
All right, then, Emperor Simon, thank you for your reporting, and let's be careful out there.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's definitely a security concern, even though we had, security on mind this morning, and this happening definitely calls to question it's a whole lot of things altogether. Well, Onyekachi Adekoya joins us this morning to discuss this and several other security issues that we had lined up. Is Zonal Provost Marshal, Association of Licensed Private Security Practitioners. He joined us virtually. Thank you again for joining us this morning. Well, yet another one, you would say, the concern for me and definitely for so many other people is, how come we don't see these things before they occur?
Good morning. Thank you for the question, and good morning to the viewers. Another sad day for Nigerians, really. To the question on how come we don't see it coming, we must remember that Niger State is about 76,000 square kilometers of landmass. It's about the biggest state in Nigeria. Again, it highlights the problem with our current security setup and how we are postured to address the issue of security in Nigeria. Everyone is stretched, really, and fairly. The military has operations in about 34 states in this country. We have new service chiefs, and they have their hands full and their plates full in the Northeast. And what we're beginning to see in Niger, I mean, for example, in Shiroro, sometime this year, I think that 4 people were kidnapped, just around January 14th. About 22 people were also killed just last September in regional local government. And again, what we're beginning to see, like the traditional ruler has said, there are some places in Niger State where the military, the bandits, or you want to call them terrorists, because from the pictures we saw, I mean, people carrying RPGs are not just normal classifications of bandits. So the IGP Adamu, sometime last year, called them terrorists. So let's call them what they are. So these terrorists have been operating rather freely in Niger State, and it's becoming increasingly worrisome over the past 3 years. If you follow the crime incident and statistics, you would see almost every now and then 22, 19, 33, and particularly people in the remote communities. So we are beginning to think that these armed organized groups breaking away from the Northwest and breaking away from the Northeast, developing new territories and spaces for themselves, are beginning to find safe haven and some joy in Niger State.
Well,
so I think those are the real issues.
Yeah, those are the issues. But then we have security apparatus of state whose job is to prevent crime, primarily to prevent. Now, it would seem, I mean, anyone would tell you right now from all of these reports that are always coming up, we seem to have lost the steam at preventing, and we are now subjected, compelled to fight. Now, if we continue to do this fighting, just as you have said, all security apparatus of state are completely stretched. So, what then do we do now? This is just one. We were just discussing 2 days ago and yesterday as well that, what happened in Shasha in Oyo State. Northern governors came all the way from the north to the south to confer with the governors of Oyo and Ogun States, all in the name of trying to, address some of the security challenges. Perhaps their own way of preventing further breakdown of law and order. But for security agencies, we are fighting rather than preventing. And who knows when the next one is going to happen? What should we be doing now?
So, thank you. I mean, fair assessment. The elephant in the room, which I continue to say every time I have the opportunity, is the issue of state policing. And without being an alarmist, it's almost clear that the wheels are almost coming off. On the current setup we have held on to so strongly, in the past 3 decades. The federalist approach to security and matters that are very local. You can see where these issues are happening in the local communities, very remote places. And in any case, like you rightly said, the DSS has a deployment in every local government in Nigeria. So it's not a question of do we have the data or do we not have the data? Do we know what is happening and where it's happening? We know. We know where this is happening. We know the black spots. We know the difficulties of the terrain. But to some extent, we are incapacitated by the structure we are holding on to. Every crime is local. And until we take a local approach to addressing the issue of crime and begin to ultimately hold the state governors responsible for security in the state and the local government chairman, we always forget in Nigeria the local government chairman. Niger State, like I said, is one of the biggest states in Nigeria. But when we talk about insecurity in local communities, everybody seems to absorb the local government chairman. If you don't even have force deployed, you can mobilize the people. You can conscientize the people. You can galvanize the people. There are things that can be done within the local government communities. But what you find is that you have local government chairmen who are not even the local government. Local government chairmen who leave their spaces ungoverned, unattended to, and they return back to the city centers, and in some instances, only to come back at month end for sharing or whatever allocation they have to share. And then they go back again. So the people in the remote communities are left almost most times without a semblance or a sense of governance. And nature abhors a vacuum. So this is the real issue. We can pepper over this issue as much as we want. How much can an IGP do who is sitting now in Abuja? How much can the chief of army staff do? How much can a president do? So until we break down the approach to security to a local policing approach, these issues are continuing. We will not go to anytime soon.
How has, yes, Mr. Adekoya, just a moment. How has, going by this assessment of yours, we've had, community policing structure of sorts from what the IGP announced, and the training of some constabularies deployed already in some segments of the country. And of course, we've had the likes of the self-help, if I can use that term, legally backed, of course, by southwest governors and a number of other, states like that, including Kano and all of that. How much has that helped in fighting this insecurity? If we're going to, take on the argument of community policing just as the way you're saying it, do you think that's not strong enough?
Now, good question. Good. You remember, I think I was expecting you when I told you that the community policing effort by the police would not work. This was almost 8 months ago. And truth to type, politicians have come, they've made promises. You have a federal-initiated community policing approach. It is not a community-initiated community police approach. They are two different things. You have local community constables who don't bear arms. They are not paid by the federal. In some states, they are promised to be paid 10,000 by the state government. In some states, 15,000 a month. In some other states, 20,000. The numbers are all over the place. And the community policing constable is just at his best a local liaison between the community and the federal police. In any case, we should have over 500,000 policemen in Nigeria today. We do not have that. In any case, we can argue that over 50% of the federal police force are just busy protecting private interests. So when you come to the operations on the ground, the truth of the matter is, even if all the policemen that we have were deployed to do the proper police job they should be doing, we still would not have enough police. Now, the argument is you want to run a federal police structure, but you don't have the wherewithal. is it not time to change strategy? Because if you take out the supply of the state government into the police force and the support, logistical support they give the police, in Nigeria today, we will have a police that is flat on its stomach. So that issue of community policing will not work as currently settled. It won't work this year. It won't work next 5 years. It will work 20 years. So the issue of vigilante and the Amoteco self-help, we are dealing with a hydra-headed monster here. And we are coming late to the party. So the state governors and the regional approach, they are playing catch-up. You are trying to dislodge people who are perched in ungoverned spaces for law. I mean, you can only play catch-up, and that's just basically what we're doing. So what we are saying is that we should have a bottom-up approach. The ultimate thing that wins security strategy is local context. You can't take federal context and seek to superimpose it over local. You will lose the narrative completely. And so this is the bigger problem. The wheels are coming up in every state. There is no state in the Republic today, the Federal Republic of Nigeria today, that is not having one issue of insecurity or the other at an alarming level. So if the current strategy is working, then we should have these issues.
Well, you know, that analogy you gave about 50% of the Nigerian police force protecting the elite, I think that we'll have to double check on that, because that would be a huge figure, to say the least. But, you know, we've got civil defense. There's an outfit called Peace Corps. They're trying to get legal backing now to perform more functions than they're doing now. Different states have got one policing outfit or the other, at least one. Some have 2, 3, either doing traffic functions, regulatory functions, all kinds of functions. Now, when you talk about, you know, decentralizing and not letting everything run from Abuja, is it just about that? Because if all these outfits, all these agencies exist and we're not getting the kind of results we're getting, what is the missing link?
Kimberly, thanks for the question again. Again, on the numbers of the amount of police protecting private interest, not just private person. Almost every hotel has 4 policemen, almost any serious hotel. Major businesses, oil and gas installation, have policemen, and they have to have policemen. And so when you look at the private businesses and private persons, you understand where those numbers are coming from. Now, what is the missing link? Very good question. And what bothers me, importantly, is that our political class have not gone through any school of security. They've not been schooled, basically, in understanding the essence of security itself. So a man can't give what he does not have. And I do hope that a time will come where, you know, elected officials will have to go through some form of orientation on what has to happen or what security should be or what should not be. So the missing link basically is local operations. When you want to address insecurity, you need to start by first understanding the threat environment. You need to do like an audit of what you have, what has worked, what has not worked, and why are the issues that you're facing still lingering? And why is it that your approach it's not working? Local context. When you understand your local issues, you then draw up local strategy, you know, bearing in mind your operating environment. And then, you know, security is a dynamic field. So you don't set up and say, yes, we have arrived. There must be monitoring and evaluation. Importantly, logistics. Logistics is very important. Very important.
Local solutions, operating environments. I mean, time and again, lots of people always talk about how we need to get our leadership recruitment process right, either from political space upward. Now, can we sort out this policing question if we don't get that leadership recruitment process right?
Chamberlain, the answer is no. Politics is at the heart of every security problem we have. This is my own my own assessment of the issue. The political will, I do think, is lacking to address and confront head-on the issue of insecurity. You know, if not for politics, why are we in the 21st century? It's the year of our Lord 2021. And, you know, and we do think that we can have a federal security sector of work in a Nigeria that has almost 220 million people. The will to do what has to be done, you know, devoid of politics, for me is lacking. And the governors of the states are themselves complacent. And, you know, the president is just one man. If the 36 governors plus the FCT minister come together and say, Mr. President, we do strongly feel that this should be done. And, you know, and they hash it out. Something would definitely have been done by now. But we are busy playing the ostrich in Nigeria at the cost of people's lives. Daily, our senses have become almost numb. People die. And, you know, we almost lose the sense of value of human life. And politics just perpetuates over everything. So rather than address the issue, people whip up sentiments, they whip up religious sentiments, ethnic sentiments, and people are dying every day. So it's not sustainable. For how long do we continue to play politics with security? And again, I was just saying this morning to some group of friends. Have we noticed that on the eve of every major election set, crime statistics will just go off the roof, only for it to come down after a major election? Is there any correlation between election cycle and the state of insecurity in Nigeria?
That's a big question. Yeah, that's a big question you have asked there, Mr. Adekoya, and one would wonder, I mean, if indeed we can get an answer, a decisive answer to that one. But we have to thank you this morning because your perspectives have been quite revealing. Onyekachi Adekoya is Zonal Provost Marshal, Association of Licensed Private Security Practitioners and a security consultant. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. Malkwe.
Well, that's where we'll have to wrap up the program. We're hoping that we'll be able to take some of your comments and views tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Malkwe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of the day and keep safe.
I'm Train Bellin. So goodbye.